audio. I've got this cat who just really wants to play. Hey, Took. Where did it go? I missed it. It's right under you. Yeah, the VGA didn't end up successful. I was thinking I might actually take another shot at that, since thinking about the particular failure, it's possible I haven't totally destroyed the board, so it might just be worth heating up the board with the preheater and having slightly less flux on it and giving it a bit more of a controlled insertion. So I might try that after playing with Tuco for a bit, since I've got the board preheater here and I've got the board already ready to go, so that'll tell me whether or not the board goes into my pile of broken electronics to hack or my pile of working electronics to hack. Ah, that's a hard one. I think it's stuck under the bathroom scale, but he's really used to getting bolts out from under that thing. He will move anything that isn't, like, literally nailed to the floor. Oh, that's a good idea. A suggestion from the chat from Graphic for a quick tour of the shop. Let me see what I can do with the length of this cable that I have. So let's see. There's Tuco. Oh man, it's so hard not to keep Tuco Cam trained on Tuco, because that's what it's for. Hey little guy, let me give you a really good bolt, and then we'll see if I can use that to drive this tour. Alright, so this is the area where I've been filming, stationed right next to the heater because it's kind of cold and I'm a wuss. I live in this kind of weird, like, warehousey space. It's basically a concrete box, and so this kind of floor area is my shop that I keep kind of reconfigurable to do a bunch of different things with. So right now I just have some tables and some like old art projects, and that other desk is kind of my original soldering workstation with the nicer microscope. Closer, any of that. That's about as long as the wire is right now. It's tangled on some stuff. But yeah, that's my kind of other soldering workstation. The vinyl cutter that I got from a friend. Another like Windows PC that my friend uses when they're over. And then I don't think the wire will reach up there, but I've got like a little living area up there, a bedroom and a little bit of storage space. And there's a kitchen and a bathroom, so it's a nice space. It's like nice, and it's pretty much exactly what I want in a live workspace, and I like having the live and the work in the same space because it's really hard for me to separate the two, and it's nice to just be able to keep working on stuff at pretty much any hour. Hey, Tico. And then I guess I kind of glossed over the hardware setup over here. So, oh, I need to give Tuco another bolt. Hey, Tuco. You want to go down the hallway down there? Oh, the hammock is also super important. I got that hammock for camping a while back, and then when I moved into this place, I've been here since like the beginning of last year. I found this great place to hang it, so it's super effective there. And so that's my kind of main workstation with this huge monitor that my new work sent me. It's pretty amazing. And that's where I do coding and video editing and all that sort of stuff. And then this is the kind of video production area that I have been gradually setting up over the past many months. And it's all designed to be pretty reconfigurable still, but it's been gradually kind of settling into a layout I like. So I really like having, so this is my camera that I do all the filming on. It's a Canon, which Canon is this? Let's see if the camera can tell you. It is, I think it's like a T5 or T7 or one of those. Does that focus? I think I might just have the resolution cranked so low on this webcam that it's hard to really see this in detail. But yeah, I forget exactly the model number. Oh, there it is, Rebel T5i, which I think also goes by a different number. I've done a lot of, like, one of the first things that I did with this camera when I got it was I used it for mapping out LEDs in these like light art installations I was working on. So, for example, something like this thing right here, which I could turn it on, but it would be much better when it's not covered in sunlight right now. This has like a bunch of LEDs inside at all sorts of different kind of random orientations. And the LEDs are actually connected just kind of in whatever way it was electrically convenient and like mounting-wise was convenient. And then I wrote this script that took a lot of photos and used that to map out where the LEDs actually were. And so I was writing code to talk to this thing with like libgphoto2, and that was pretty fun. And so right now I've got it kind of wired into this Borg contraption. So it's on this magic arm, which I can unlock and then reposition. Let's see if I can put this camera down so I have a hand free to demo that. Yeah, so these poles here are like lighting stands, C-stands. I really like these things. I have 4 of them in the shop, and I got them a while ago as kind of a way to, you know, just put up lights and any other equipment I'm working with, and just found that they're also just super great for these cameras. So it's just attached to the pole here with a clamp, and then there's this arm that you can unlock and then reposition, and has a pretty good reach to it. And if I need it to go much farther, I can put this on a different place on the pole, or even take the camera off of this thing, although I haven't needed to do that recently because this is pretty flexible. And then this clamp just locks it down into a new position. I also found this 3D printable little pole focus lever on Thingiverse, which is pretty nice. You can use this to easily zoom in and out, and it makes it a little more tactile to remember interesting zoom positions. I would totally have one of these for focus as well, except this lens doesn't have a mechanical autofocus. It has like an encoder wheel here, so that wouldn't really do any good. The positions wouldn't mean anything. Let's see, let's turn this monitor on too. So then this is the little HDMI microscope that lots of people have asked about. And I've seen these sold under various brand names, but this was really just me looking for an alternative to that big glass microscope on the other side of the room that I could easily recommend to people who don't necessarily have a lot of space or are on a really small budget, but that also is easy to share, because that other microscope, hi Tuco, that other microscope is really delightful when I'm just working on it alone, but since it isn't a trinocular, so it doesn't have like a separate mount for a camera, I can't share the image easily. I can take photographs by just holding my phone up to the lens, but that takes a lot of, it takes a lot of steadiness to get that photo lined up, and so it would really suck for video. And I've got like an adapter I've tried that would mount this DSLR on one of the lenses. I've tried 3D printing it, and that's actually all right. I just don't use it much because it's kind of a pain to set up. And so this camera, or this microscope is nice. It goes by various brand names. I got this one on eBay, but you can also find them on Amazon, or actually vice versa. I think I got this one, maybe I did get this one on eBay. Yeah, and then somebody in my Twitter feed found one on Amazon also, and that's probably a little more convenient to get. But it goes for like $130. It's advertised as 1080p. I don't know if the sensor is actually totally 1080p. It might be doing some scaling or something, but it seems pretty close. The main limiting factor is just that the optics aren't amazing. But, for stuff like this, it's actually good enough, and the working distance is okay. It has a little, like, clear piece on the bottom that it comes with. I don't know why, but I just broke that off to give me more working distance. Let's see what else. Soldering equipment. I've had a Weller WES51 for ages. I actually just recently got a second one because the soldering iron on my first one died after I don't know how many years I've had it. So it's nice. I mean, I haven't tried most of the competition, so I have no reason to be loyal to Weller, but this was like the first good soldering iron I got, and I still like it for that reason, I guess. Just recently got a smoke extractor. I hadn't had one of those for the longest time because I'd just gotten so used to holding my breath while I'm soldering, but it's actually really, really nice to have the ability to breathe clean air while you're working. It's pretty revolutionary, so I endorse those. And then for the streaming, so I found these great like VESA mount monitor to pole clamp adapters. So that's what all these are on. Oops, let me untangle this camera cable. I guess I could be using that wireless camera setup. I found that, on my streaming machine, I can stream anything that'll like mirror its screen over Wi-Fi to it. So I have this AirPlay air server running on it. Actually, let me show you the hardware behind all this first. So under the desk running this, there is now a pair of Mac Minis. The one on the right is called Fishbowl, and that's the one that's attached to this monitor here. That's the one that you actually see in the videos. So it's set up a little specially, so it's designed to not really have extraneous stuff on it and to be fairly well presentable on video, and it doesn't have to do other stuff. So, it's free to run VMs and do crazy stuff over USB that I might want to demo without it taking down everything else that I'm running. Because I had some problems with that even in the first video, and as well as in some previous ones that I'd recorded. I think I was doing one video where I was debugging something over USB and I plugged it in and it crashed my audio interface while I was recording. So I don't want to have to worry about stuff like that, so I invested in a separate demo machine. And its video output is going both to this monitor and to a recorder, which I'll get to in a sec, so that I can get a high quality copy. But then for the purpose of streaming it, I ran out of inputs on this machine that's doing the streaming for just like HDMI. So I'm getting the video over there through this air server and screen capture setup. So the stream is actually running on the left Mac Mini, which I named Pixelbot. And that one has, let's see if I can get closer. Yeah, so that's, if this autofocus is, that's the machine that's streaming to you right now. And the main reason I ended up with a Mac Mini for that, which in hindsight was not actually powerful enough, it's not really keeping up with, I mean, it can barely handle the 720p stream. And I kind of gave up on doing like full HD on it. But I ended up with that machine because I needed something with dual Thunderbolt, because these are the HDMI grabbers I'm using, which are really nice, but the Thunderbolt version ended up causing a bit of lock-in. I got them first because I had like a Mac laptop and then later a MacBook or a Mac Pro that had Thunderbolt, but it's really hard to find a decent PC that has Thunderbolt. You have to get like just the right motherboard or get like a specialty machine, so I ended up getting a Mac Mini because it had the ability to use my existing grabbers, but I think soon I'm going to end up just having to upgrade the streaming machine to something with a faster GPU and more CPU cores, and then get the PCI version, either of these or of the one with 4 inputs, so that I can have a direct connection from the other computer. So that's the video setup mostly. Well, that's the video setup for streaming. And then for the higher quality stuff, for the videos I'm editing together, of course the camera just records on SD cards. I would love to use a separate recorder with this camera, but this one sadly doesn't have clean HDMI out. The viewfinder that I've been streaming is the only HDMI out that I get from this thing, so I have to use its built-in recorder, which is annoying. So it's just got HDMI, power adapter, and then I don't have like remote shutter or anything. That is actually just audio. So all the video recorders are getting audio from this audio interface over here. So over here is more like recording land. This pile of stuff over here, which is currently kind of disorganized, is like HDMI. Oh, actually, let me put on the headset, because as I move away from, I haven't explained the audio setup yet, but you're mostly hearing me through this mic. But I also have a headset, which I intend to use when I care more about the quality. So let me make sure that's on and put it on. I'm sorry to be doing this with the mixer on. Okay, hopefully you can hear me now. Let me actually check the headphones to monitor it. Check, check. Okay, I think that's good. All right, so I have this kind of long XLR tail that I can walk around the shop with now. All right, so the audio setup. I've been mostly using this shotgun mic so far, which is convenient in that I can reject a lot of the shop noise, but still get a good amount of the ambient sound. So you can hear like the tool noises and stuff like that, and it's decent at picking up audio. And I've done as much as I can to filter out the noise from the room, but it's really tough to get clean audio in the shop. You know, it's like the outdoors is just right over there, and there's all sorts of equipment and stuff people run, and there are, let me see if I can get a view outside. I've been keeping these windows closed because the sun is super bright right now, but the view outside is really pretty. And I don't know, you probably can't see it from here, but there are some train tracks like right over there. So you probably hear the train in the stream sometimes, and you know, that's just one of the things that contribute to the noise. But it's a good view. Let's try to extract myself without running over cables. So yeah, then this is the headset mic. I just recently got this. I had been using this wireless mic that I actually did an early video on to try to improve the the kind of fidelity of the receiver. It was still not very good. Like, even after doing my best to improve it, it was having problems that I think were partly due to it just being a low quality microphone and partly due to it being a wireless analog system, and there's just too much interference around here. You know, I would actually get specific interference that I would notice like from the circuit that I was working on, and then I would have to edit around that, or sometimes that would end up in the video if I really needed that audio clip. So all of the microphones, if I can make it there with these wires attached, they're all headed into this, let's see, this M-Audio interface, and that's a M-Track 8, which has more channels than I need for this particular setup, but I got it kind of expecting to do slightly more complicated things with it than I'm currently using it for. This setup probably would do fine with something with 4 inputs and 4 outputs. So I'm using it to separately record the microphones, as well as the audio output from the fishbowl computer, and then anything else that I need for specific videos. So I've had videos where I use like audio from a device I'm working on, or where I have like a little instrument or something, and so I have extra inputs for that kind of thing. And it's all analog. So, I mean, it's processed digitally, of course, with, I use Ableton to do all the audio processing. So some of it's mixing, but I do a lot of like EQ and compression and, all that. So I kind of incidentally use Ableton to record because it's nice to have all the raw tracks in high quality, but I'm really just kind of using it as a real-time audio processor. And so the analog inputs come through, and I've actually got these like ground loop isolators, like audio transformers, because otherwise all the digital communications going between these same machines ends up kind of inducing noise on the ground lines of the analog. So before I put these in, like the audio coming into these HDMI grabbers, which I use to record the microscope and the computer, was just like unusably full of interference, and you could just hear the USB packets, and they would change depending on the video mode you were capturing in and stuff. This is just a mess of cables. We've got two HDMI grabbers, got a couple of HDMI splitters, and then an HDMI audio inserter, which is how I get audio into the microscope stream so that I can synchronize it, because the microscope doesn't have either a microphone or an aux input. So there's just a little box that's just taking, it's like an analog to digital converter that inserts it into the HDMI stream. So, and then it's not running right now, but this Windows machine is usually running one of the compressors, so like grabbing the microscope. And then this Mac, which right now has Final Cut enabled and open, always runs the audio, plus sometimes it also does some of the video recording. Like, I guess I've been using that to record the fishbowl computer, since it has enough CPU free for that to do some more H.264 encoding. And yeah, I just end up with a lot of big files on piles of external hard disks, which also means that when the disks fail, I get a lot of broken disks to practice on and like extra magnets and stuff. I hope you enjoyed the shop. Let me try to get back to playing with Tuco and catch up on chat in case there's something I missed. Let's find a bolt. Is this a bolt? Hey, boy. I know you want this. Oh, I'm just catching up on chat a little bit. It's nice to see people from all over. Hey, Tuco. Nice job. Where'd you drop it? Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, a lot of love coming from the chat. Thank you. Oh, I really love this cat. He really keeps me grounded here. I seem to have trouble getting along with people for any length of time, even people I really like. You know, I have to kind of take it in small doses. But Tuco's been just a really amazing roommate. I love the little sliding stop he comes to. I think he really appreciates how slippery the floors here are, the kind of slippery concrete. It's like cement with an epoxy kind of coating on it. And they just recoated them before I moved in, and I have only somewhat managed to damage my floor from all the projects here so far. So it's still pretty slick, and he likes kind of sliding around. And I have to be careful when I wear socks here. Actually, some of the worst injuries I've given myself here so far have been. So I have one of those silly hoverboard scooters that I got mostly for hacking around on, and they're kind of annoying to ride outside because they need like a really flat surface to be fun. But I've ridden it around here in the shop a little bit, and I've given myself some pretty nasty falls because I was riding that and wearing socks. And so I would lose my balance and then try to catch myself and just have no traction. Oh no, now we're getting spam in the channel. How do I deal with that? Hey Tuco, I'm gonna throw this for you while I try to spam this. Yeah, boy. I think we can do some of this until Tuco's tired of it, and then I think I'll bring out the preheating plate and see if that gets this phone working as just kind of a last-ditch attempt, because I feel like trying that before declaring it broken. Oh, there's a question from chat, from O, about kind of what I've been working on and my job history. That's a good question. Like currently, and it's been kind of complicated lately since I had kind of I don't know, I didn't really think that much about the broader world of jobs out there when I was much younger. I kind of looked for something relatively simple and stable and kind of got myself stuck in it for a little while. So for a while, that was, you know, before graduating from school, I was mostly just working on my own projects, and I would have something that I would decide is just super important, and I would latch onto that and just, you know, decide that it's above everything else, and that, you know, this is like my destiny. This is what I need to do, and it was, you know, it was dumb. It was a good way to waste a lot of time and through some views, but it also gave me the motivation to really push myself to build some kind of complicated things at a young age, and to make some things that would teach me a lot. So I was good at kind of giving myself jobs like that, and made some, you know, I made some like educational software, and made some oh, what else? I made I mean, I did a lot of just like little kind of hacky projects. The first thing that I did that was like a really big serious undertaking that I put like a lot of my kind of personal energy into was this idea to build a like basically a small laptop for like high school students. And this was when I was in high school, and I thought it would be great if more people could like type up their papers and stuff. And I was doing this on this cheap laptop that I got off of eBay at the time and fixed up for my own use. But that didn't seem like a super scalable solution. I thought, you know, oh, I could build something that's like, it's like a cheap Palm Pilot kind of thing, like a PDA that you could type on and save your notes in. So that seemed like a thing at the time that I liked. And so that led me into trying to build the hardware for that, which was kind of an experience, and like fabricating a circuit board, and, you know, putting together this was like a Motorola 68000 based thing that had like DRAM and an LCD, and I ended up writing a bootloader for it, and it ran this variant of Linux that didn't need like a full MMU called UC Linux. But then that led into another project that was that took many years of my life. It was something I called Pico GUI. So GUI like a graphical user interface, and Pico like the metric prefix meaning something really tiny. And my idea for it was like a user interface for these really little devices that you might have, you know, in your pocket, like, you know, phones or whatever back, you know, and this was like around the turn of the century. So the idea of what a phone was pretty different then. But I had this idea that, you know, it was sort of based on this client-server architecture, like X Windows, but reversed a little bit. So you had this client that, in this case, the client was very small, and the server was kind of full of as much of the kind of GUI logic as possible. Whereas, I mean, that might have been the original vision for X Windows, but the way it kind of evolved was that the X Windows server ends up mostly just doing drawing, and the client kind of does all of the GUI toolkit kind of stuff. And so I tried doing this thing where the GUI toolkit, like all the buttons and text edit widgets and all that, were actually on the server side, and the client was very thin and just had your application code. And And the motivation for that at the time was kind of lopsided because I was using that special version of Linux, the UC Linux. It didn't have support for shared libraries, which we really take for granted now. You had to statically compile in the libraries to all the binaries because it didn't have a way of like relocating libraries to different address spaces easily. So that was weird, and it ended up kind of provoking this design where this tiny client could be statically linked into all your applications, and then the much larger code for the buttons and everything else. Hey, Tuco. You dropped it all the way over there. Does that mean you're done? Or does that mean you want me to go over there and get it? Let me see if I can do that without running out of microphone cable. Yeah, he still wants to play. So this GUI design led me down some strange avenues, and I ended up getting really deep into it. Like the GUI itself really outlived the original project, that kind of PDA that I was working on. And I really latched onto the idea that it could be kind of scalable. So you write this one application that runs in the client, and then depending on the server it connects to, it might have different layouts or different buttons or whatever, depending on the capabilities of that device, the size of the screen, or like whether it had a keyboard or a touch screen or whatever. And so, I don't know, it's one of those ideas that seems like completely irrelevant in today's context because like those problems exist for sure, but we have just completely different ways of solving them. But I spent a lot of time working on that, and it taught me a lot about building kind of operating system level software. And led me into a lot of other avenues, like I had to work on display drivers and input drivers, and I had to write a simple web browser and like a terminal emulator, and just all the software that you usually think of as being kind of part of the desktop environment. I tried to get that going in my kind of new concept of what a GUI could be like. So a combination of those sorts of personal projects, so like that GUI and some of the hardware stuff that I've been doing with like USB microcontrollers, that ended up kind of leading me to this job. I moved from the suburbs of Denver, Colorado, where I grew up, to Silicon Valley after hearing about this job from a friend on IRC and getting invited out there to interview. And so that was how I got to working at VMware, working on virtual machines and virtualizing USB and GPUs. And I did that for way longer than I expected I would, and even way longer than I probably should have. Was there for like 6 years. And I stayed way longer than, or way past, when it stopped being fun, but, it was one of those things where I kind of got in this position where the financial stability seemed more useful than having a job I liked for a while, which, I'm sure a lot of you have been there. But that didn't last forever. I got to a point where part of the reason I wanted the stability was because I was trying to support this partner I was with at the time and trying to help him pay for grad school. And so a lot of other things changed in life, and that relationship exploded, and I ended up moving to San Francisco from Silicon Valley and just using that as a kind of impetus to quit the job and find something different. So then that led me to take another job, not in pure software really, but in like firmware. That was at this place called Siftio in San Francisco that was a startup working on kind of a video game system. Oh, Tuco is so good at this. It's a little far away now, but he just went, so I think he saw that the bolt went under the door to that little cabinet that's under the stairs. And so, but he knows that he can go kind of behind the stairs and get to the cabinet that way. You're so good, Tuco. So Siftio is working on this this kind of new video game system based on these little physical cubes you could move around and connect to each other. And the whole idea was to get, to have an experience that's based less on like flat, featureless screens and more on like physically manipulating objects with your hands. And so it was cool in a lot of ways. and it was impractical in a lot of ways, but I had a fun time there making basically a new operating system for these little video game cubes. Hey, Tuco, are you tired? They were pretty interesting because they needed to run basically apps, like sandboxed programs that you could download from the internet on hardware that didn't really have built-in security features because of power and cost concerns. And then they had this whole like wireless graphics and input subsystem because the games themselves ran on this one kind of microcontroller brick that had batteries and a speaker. But then the kind of combination display and input devices were these other bricks that had microcontrollers and ran off of batteries. So I worked on the firmware for those little bricks, and they were basically like radio-controlled GPUs. All of that stuff's open source now, actually. I don't know what use it's going to have, if any, but I'm glad that those parts are out there because I imagine people learning from it or stripping it for parts in some way, because that's totally what I would do. And so I did the Siftio thing for a while, and I ended up kind of burning myself out really badly in that job because I kind of put myself in this position where I had to build just like miraculous new thing after miraculous new thing. And I mean like miraculous not in the sense of like it was good, but like it would be a miracle if it actually worked the way it needed to. And, you know, so like I got it, you know, mostly working, but it's one of those things where there was probably just way too much risk involved in the project. And I kind of pushed myself really hard to do all of these things that, you know, seemed like they just had to be done for the project to succeed. So I did as much as I could, but then I kind of burned out and had to just take a step back and ended up just like quitting and just doing nothing for a little while and then getting like contract jobs and doing art projects for a while. And I still am interested in that kind of thing, but you know, I've had a lot of mixed experiences both with the contracting and with the art. It's good in some ways, but I also have a better understanding of the limitations to, you know, when it's not good. And kind of burned myself out a little bit on art too by putting like way too much effort into a project that probably couldn't have been as successful as I really wanted it to be. So then I kind of found myself getting more interested in just doing kind of hardware research kind of stuff. And I was just doing some of that on my own for my Patreon, and just kind of working on the assumption that I could keep cranking out content and potentially be able to just pay my expenses with Patreon, which would be really nice. But then I just kind of got this weird opportunity where, you know, it felt like such a coincidence, but I found you know, somebody who I knew online who had a position that both seemed interesting and didn't conflict with all the other things that I want to do. So that's how I ended up at Sanrio, working, you know, from here, but full-time remotely for them doing security research. So still like taking stuff apart and figuring out what makes it tick, and still being able to share it, just not necessarily right away, and still having, you know, time to do my own projects on the side. And we seem to all be on the same page about the kind of freedom of information and publishing this stuff so that everybody can learn from it. So that's kind of where I'm at now, kind of trying to juggle a bunch of things, but no longer having to imminently worry about where all my rent is coming from, which is nice. And having the freedom to just try to crank out as much interesting content as I can and try to make new tools and put things out there. So that's what I've been trying to do lately. I think my cat's tired. I think it might be time to warm up the preheating plate. Oh, I was just catching up on chat, and there's a question about what my degree was in. And actually, my degree, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about that, because I did go to college and I did get a degree. I got my degree in computer science Not actually initially. I started out studying computer engineering, which was kind of a blend of computer science and electrical engineering. So I did take several electrical engineering classes and kind of got like halfway through electrical engineering before switching majors, mostly because I just couldn't be arsed to do all of the repetitive rote like homework and math and everything that was involved in the EE classes, basically. I think at the time I told myself it was because I was more likely to want to go into a job with CS right away rather than a job with like EE. And I kind of had a better time with the CS classes versus the EE classes. But I've also always kind of had a disconnect between what the stuff I actually like doing and what I like learning versus what I've been taught in school. And I feel like most of the stuff I do is like self-taught first, with maybe some polishing here and there in school. Like I built stuff in FPGAs way before I took my first digital logic class in school, but then I was doing stuff in digital logic class that I would never have bothered to do on my own, like Carnot maps. Not that those are really necessary, but so that's kind of how I feel about school. I spent a lot of time avoiding school. So that GUI project I mentioned, Pico GUI, that was all during like high school and college for me. So I spent a lot of time just doing absolutely minimal work in school so that I could spend as much time as possible making this GUI system that I thought was super important at the time. So it was kind of a weird tactic, but that's kind of how I got where I am. Just kind of going to school only because I was kind of forced to by my parents, and then doing my own thing, which isn't going to work for everybody. But I think my learning style is different enough from what school was equipped to handle that I needed to do something a little unconventional in order to motivate myself. Otherwise, I just would have been fighting back against everything. Yeah, I really like Can't Be Arsed. It is a hallmark. Oh man, the camera and the laptop are fighting over which cable should be on top. I think I'm going to keep that on Tuco Cam while I get the air plate into position, because I don't really have a good camera for this. That plate I've been working on is kind of this, it's kind of weird, but I like the way it looks on camera. It's a piece of just like extra steel. Like it's actually something that an ex of mine got for welding practice a while ago, and I had some extra pieces of it that I've been using as just like work surface because it's so flat, and it's much like sturdier than these plastic folding tables. Oh, this is heavier than the other hot plate. And let's hope it doesn't just blow a breaker, because the stream might stop if that happens. Tuco's staying well clear of all of this. Gotta make sure I keep the microscope far enough away from the hot plate. I have not melted it so far, except with the soldering iron. Okay. see where we're at now. Oops. When I lose keyboard focus, my remote that switches channels doesn't work. I think I inadvertently clicked something. Let's have this camera. What's that? Can we focus? Where is that phone we were working on? Here it is. Let's see if that's roughly at the right height. A little higher. Okay. And I'm obviously going to unmount that board before heating it up, but I'm just checking the focus. Hey Tuco, you looking for more bolts? Alright, I think this just needs power, and then we can start the board heating up. Maybe even look at it with my, my FLIR. Oh, there's a question in the chat about, a couple of questions actually. So there's a question about an external temperature probe for the preheater. That might be useful to have a probe on the board. The closest this has actually is under this bar, which I'm honestly not sure if this is designed to run with or without this bar in place. I had it off last time I ran it, but I think it might be easier to keep the board supported with it on there, and maybe this doesn't block that much of the heat. But it has, I don't know if you can see it with the microscope, but this little doodad right here on the DSLR view is a little thermocouple, and it's just not quite touching the heater plate. So I think that's what it's using, but it's definitely not that accurate. I've been trying to compare it to the low-end FLIR that I have here, which also is not that accurate, and they don't agree that much. But yeah, I guess I need a better temperature measurement setup. I don't know if even a nicer FLIR would be like super accurate for this, because you'd have to account for the emissivity really well, but like attaching a thermocouple to the board might be a good idea if I can wrangle up one of those. Alright, I need to find a power cord for this. Yeah, I'm going to run this directly into the outlet because this is like 15 amps. I'm hoping the circuit has enough juice on it. Oh, another question was if the board was working. It was working at the beginning of yesterday's stream and broken at the end of yesterday's stream, which was half the intention. The intention was to break it and then unbreak it, but the unbreaking it failed. So I'm not really optimistic that it's unbreakable at this point, or that it's fixable, sorry. But there are many things that could have killed it, but I think it's worth at least giving this one try on the hot plate. All right, just checking my cameras. I'm not going to start the, I'm not going to start the microscope just yet, but I want to make sure this has a good view. I mean, I probably won't use this footage necessarily, but I don't know, maybe it'll work. If it works, then I'll put something little together to go into the soldering video. I really don't mind at all just doing tons of work for something that turns into like a few seconds of video. Alright. So that switch just turns on the temperature sensing and the fans internally, and then this one turns on the heat. Undo these flat flecks. Yeah, so I have a non-contact meter. It's the, I forget the model number, but it's the really low-end FLIR with the lepton that isn't a phone add-on, but it's like the same sensor. And so it has a non-contact IR thermometer in it as well. It's just kind of tricky to aim that properly at like just the right area, but I'll give it a shot. I think the problem I've had with that particular FLIR and this setup is just that it can't handle temperatures this hot. So like you can kind of get a sense of what's going on the board itself, but because the heating element is in view, that just like saturates the sensor and it kind of spazzes out. Alright, so there's the thing. I'm going to try to mount this so that the area we care about isn't like over the bar in the middle, just in case that matters, but alright, so I think from before I found that it was, like, I think the instructions recommended setting this to like 150 or something, like 160 C for leaded solder, but I think that it tends to run cooler than what this actually reads, so I think I found that it works a little better if I heat it to maybe 200. So I'm going to set it to that, and then we can get out the FLIR and see what's actually going on. Oh yeah, so the preheater is, it's like J8280 from tech168.cn. I think I found it on Amazon. I think it was like 140 or 150 bucks. Make sure to get the correct voltage version for your locale because they're not switchable. And you'd need a hell of a transformer. Oh, Tuco is right here. I need Tuco cam. Hey, Tuco. You're sitting right next to my cold coffee. This is definitely one of those times when it would be nice to hack this FLIR to have like Wi-Fi video streaming out. I mean, I think the best version of this is replacement firmware that includes Wi-Fi streaming with like an ESP module or something. But the quick version is a 3D printed bracket that holds my phone in just the right position. Let me switch this to Celsius. I don't know why it's still in Fahrenheit. So that stuff that's flashing is, I think, stuff that's so hot that the sensor is maxing out. If I try to, so I think I forget which of these lenses is which. Okay, so the small lens is the lepton sensor, the image, and then the big lens is the temperature. So that seems like, if I look for the cold spot, then the coldest spot I'm getting is like 30 or 40 Celsius at the moment. See if I can zoom in anymore on that. Oh, I'm also not recording. Let's format this card and start recording just in case. See, coffee before a delicate job is fine as long as you're always having coffee before a delicate job, and then you're just used to it. It's about conditioning your body, right? Yeah, you can see like vertical streaking on the sensor. It's getting overwhelmed. And yeah, the temperature measurement here, like when I'm pointing the image sensor at the board, the other sensor is just pointed directly at the heater, so it's going to be reading much hotter than the board actually is. Focus. Oh, if you have the sound up, you can tell that the hot plate is reaching its set point. The fan speed changes quite a bit depending on whether the element is on. A plain IR temperature meter. Yeah, I think I have a couple. Let me see if there's one within reach that I can get to without unplugging the microphone that I'm strapped to. I think I made this XLR long enough to reach to the other side of the shop. But I think I left the other temperature meter, since it's not like my primary one anymore, in the printing closet. And I don't think I can walk to the printing closet without unplugging this, which would be kind of noisy. Let's see if I can just aim this at the board. So, just be a little easier without the microscope in the way, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to get a good reading of the actual temperature of this. That's like the best I can do at pointing the sensor at just the board. I'm getting about 80 C right now. Oh yeah, somebody was pointing out on chat that there's a piece that's already moved. That was something I moved intentionally last time while I was just testing to see if it was hot enough, and I didn't quite put it back straight. So I wasn't paying that much attention. I think this might be a good time to take some of the flux off of this, because I think there's too much flux. and check the condition of the circuit board. I'm also just going to start the microscope recorder just in case. Check. Okay. That is recording. Hard disk clicking away. Hey Tuco, you took my seat. You can have that. All right. Here. You sit over here. You can be on camera, and I'll sit in front of you. This is kind of why I just have to have a bunch of the same kind of chairs, because Tuco is always taking my chair. Alright, well maybe we'll actually take advantage of that that capacitor being all loose, and after tidying this slightly, can try using the hot air to reseat that and just see how much easier it is with the plate heating this board up. So let's maybe just use that brush to kind of sweep the gunk. Well, I think I might actually want to mop it up rather than sweep it, so use this. There's a cat hair in there, of course. Okay. There's still plenty of flux on there, but not like way too much flux. All right. I think I'm just going to try hitting that. Ooh, look at that. You can see the flux kind of start to smooth out a little bit as it's reaching some kind of phase change, or bubbles are popping or something. Okay, well that tells me the board is definitely still coming up. Let's see what the FLIR says. Let's also reposition this camera. I really dislike how these take so long to power up. I can understand them like taking some time for the calibration step, but the actual like firmware booting doesn't seem like it should take that long. I don't think I can focus that close. So that's looking more even if I can't tell actually what the temperature is. Oh yeah, Tuco, question from the chat. Tuco is a polydactyl cat. He has thumbs on his front paws. It's really special that way. Okay, I've still got the hot air set up the same way it was yesterday. I think I'm turning the temperature back down a little bit to like 380. Let's get some slightly better tweezers like these. Alright, so that capacitor there, still pretty solid. Let's hit it with some hot air. Oh, I see it melting. Oh, there it goes, sliding right into place. I don't even have to touch it. Cool. I mean, I think I could touch it, but I don't need to. Yeah. It's pretty liquidy. Nice. Yeah, definitely better when the whole board isn't a cold heat sink trying to pull all the heat away from your precious joint. So, there's still some solder balls that are not in great condition over where that ground was. Let's see if with the benefit of this extra heat, I can take care of those a bit. Oh, thanks for correcting my pronunciation. It is fleur. That's right. Because is infrared, it isn't ear. I just think FLIR sounds cuter, but it's totally wrong. I keep wetting the sponge even though I don't actually like the sponges as much as the brass, and I have the brass thing here. It's just like the sponge is there, so I keep feeling like using it. On my other weller that I've had longer, I just took the sponge out and replaced it with a brass thing that kind of fit in about the right shape. There are fewer places you can put your hands, or like rest your wrists, when soldering over a hot plate. Oh, that's much nicer. I'm going to try to get nicer shaped solder balls by like rolling the ball around on top there, but it's not sticking the way it was with the cold ground plane sucking away the heat. And my circuit breaker hasn't blown yet. Fingers crossed. I mean, I do have multiple circuit breakers in the shop, but this is on the same circuit as the streaming equipment, so you would notice if this blew. The computers are on a UPS, but I mean, the cameras and the lights aren't. Yeah, that is still having a bit of a, like there's nothing else over here that I can easily drag that solder ball onto with the surface tension. So the usual tactic of just kind of rolling it around, it just kind of gets stuck right there. Maybe I just need to dwell a little longer to help heat the area. No, I mean, yeah, that might be the best I get. Like, they're not good shaped solder balls by any means, but like there's probably, I mean, let's see if we can get a side view. That might be more effective actually, to see if there's enough solder. Hard to get this under the microscope at the right angle. Yeah. That's not amazing, but I think it'll work. I think I'm willing to give that a try. So let's keep this on the heater, but now take a look at the chip and just make sure that it's still in good condition. And I'm just going to get that same board out that I was using before and stick the chip to it. When I said in good condition, you know, it looks pretty bad, but I think it's actually in better condition than it looks. Let's get some more light on it. Oh, I was watching Ben Krasnow's latest video, which is super cool. You should all check it out. It uses the new Kronos high-speed camera, and he built this motion control rig. And anyway, he was, again, mentioning some of the lights he used, and that reminded me to get some of those IKEA gooseneck LED lamps. So I ordered some of those because I'm too lazy to walk like down the street to IKEA. And so those will get here soon and then improve the lighting situation here. So there's a bunch of gross flux, which I'm going to remove because there's just way too much of it. But maybe first I'm just going to pass the solder ball around on there just to clean up the balls first. I agree that cats with thumbs will take over the world. I think Tuco is already well on his way. I think he is mastering the skill of training humans to do his will. The view on the microscope is really bad right now because of the lighting, so I'm actually just looking at it directly. And this is actually much easier to see directly. The solder balls show up as nice little bright points, and any kind of irregularities show up nicely when the light is at a steep angle. So, for a while I actually tried to get this microscope set up so that I could easily like tilt it like toward me to get a raking angle on the board, which helps, but I mean, of course the focal plane is really shallow, but that's not a huge deal if you can move it around easily. I think the problem I reached at that point again was just with the lighting, so maybe when I get like those little gooseneck lamps set up, maybe that'll also help with kind of alternative microscope angles. Oh yeah, I should make a point that I think I might have said they for the high-speed camera, and yeah, it's one guy, Tesla 500, and he's got a YouTube channel. It's awesome. You should check it out. And yeah, he designed this thing and documented how it works and put up a Kickstarter, and it's a great project. You should definitely check it out. It's the Chronos high-speed camera, and Tesla 500 has a YouTube channel. It's really good. He built the camera and he does his own high-speed photography with it. That needs way more isopropanol. I actually got some like heat-resistant gloves. I'm not really sure how useful they are. I mean, not for like detailed work for sure, but like for something like this, holding the circuit board while I clean it, like that might actually be nice. When the isopropyl drips on the heating element, it just boils immediately. You can kind of see some like grainy residue in the microscope. It's not really clear what that is, but now that I've got most of the gunk off, I'm just gonna like wash it with the isopropyl without the wash, or without like getting lint on it afterwards. Alright. That seems pretty clean. Alright. I think now it's just putting it back on, making letting it kind of soak in some of this preheating, and then hitting it with the hot air tool some more. I think there's enough flux on the board already. Yeah, that should be fine. It looks kind of gross under the microscope, but I think that's actually a pretty decent thin layer of flux, and it's definitely covering the solder as much as it needs to, and I don't think there's so much that it'll float away. Oh yeah, Microhex in the chat suggests anti-static brush. That's a good idea. I think I have that around here somewhere as I bump into everything.
lost my antiseptic brush. I think I know where I have a spare. As long as I can get there with the microscope cable. Yeah, this is kind of why I wanted a wireless mic, but at least that cheap UHF one I was using was not handling the electromagnetic spectrum around here very well. And the nicer wireless mics are expensive, and it's like, I didn't really want to pay that just for the privilege of not walking around with an XLR cable attached to me. Especially when my main concern was like audio quality over convenience. Oh yeah, there's still some like gluey gunk under there, so actually this is a good call. That might have gotten in the way. Oh yeah, look at that. That is a problem. I guess the glue must have had a stencil or something and must have been filling underneath the middle balls as well. Might actually have to use the knife to take that off. Oh, I have some reballing stencils here. Yeah, and that's totally a thing that we could do. I don't know, like I've had pretty good success with just using soldering iron, but I'm sure that applying solder paste through a stencil is better for reliability. So yeah, that might. The main issue with that is that it's just like less of a kind of widely applicable thing that you can show because you need specific stencils for the parts that you're using. Actually, I have a stencil very handy. Let me bring one of those out just to show. This one came from Jesse from the Keyboardio project. He did this thing recently where he was going back and forth to Shenzhen for manufacturing, and he let people sign up for this $50 bag of crap, where you can just get stuff that he can easily get at the markets there. And so this, having trouble getting it under the microscope without moving everything I've already got set up, but you can kind of see. There, I'm just gonna put it down and move it around with the tweezers. Just has these really nice, I assume these are laser drilled. Like maybe they can stamp this somehow, but I assume you would have to like laser cut these sheets. And oh, actually, it has laser engraved text at the top, so this was definitely, it's the iPhone 6 Pius. So yeah, it has all the footprints you would need for these particular parts on the iPhone. I don't see any that match what we're working with right here, but there's definitely a variety. Let's see if I can get a better view of that on the DSLR. Yeah. So all these different BGAs that you would need for repairing an iPhone 6 Pius. Yeah, the $50 box of junk was great. I should do a few more, like there's some stuff in there I might be interested in doing some videos on, since there was like a little quadcopter that would be fun to like add some remote control and tracking to, and some like weird little USB gadgets. Need like additional hands to hold this thing down, and then actually I should Kapton this down to the hot plate because otherwise it is going to slide, and I don't want that. Kapton tape can handle this heat quite easily. This hot plate seems like it's decent at being uniform, Besides having a questionable temperature accuracy, the other kind of little hitch I'm noticing, the reason it's not like a more expensive hot plate is these little jaws that are supposed to hold the circuit board are not very good. Like they have a screw lock at one side, but the other end is just free to wobble back and forth. So I kind of want it to have like a elastic at the end that kind of holds the ends closed, but I don't currently have an elastic that would survive the high temperatures that I could use for that. But Kapton tape is fine. Just trying not to burn myself. Alright, now maybe I can more effectively clean this. I kind of need a smaller brush. Like, I'm often just using a tiny bit of this brush. I think there's still some more to be done with the knife, actually. Oops. I just stabbed my microscope with the knife. It's not intentional. Trying to get a more solid Kapton attachment. So I don't know if there's a better way to take off the residue from these underfills. This is kind of a gross rework task, and I'm curious like how this would normally be done. I mean, maybe just more time or more pressure with the brush is the right answer. I mean, I was a little worried about how delicate the pads seemed to be, but I think only the no-connects were really that delicate. And it won't be so delicate when it's cold anyway. Well, relatively cold. Only on the hot plate. That seems to be helping. Yeah, good step, good call. I appreciate that suggestion. Cool. Let's maybe add a little isopropyl. Okay, there's still some flux on there, but much less. I think I might just add a little bit of flux using the pen instead of the syringe, and then put the chip on top. And a little bit on the chip. Let's restart the camera. Ooh, 3 files. Yeah, I get these giant files from all the other recorders because they just don't care, and then this Canon is like, it wants to have these little 4 GB recording files. The high quality HDMI recordings I've been doing with these Elgato devices, since they're pretty easy to use because they don't need like PCI or Thunderbolt or anything. They're just USB 2 because they do some hardware compression, and they're not expensive, and because they're just USB, I can connect them to pretty much any computer that has enough CPU power. So I've got one of those on the Mac Pro and one of those on the... Wow. At this hot temperature, the tape I used to stick that down to the board just for working on it got really gummy and gross. So that's adding an extra level of grossness, but I don't think it affects the circuit. It does make it harder to tell where pin 1 actually is. Something like that. Oh, need more light. Man. Oh, there it is. Bottom left. Looks like the pin 1 dot. So that needs to go up the top left. Oh, just to clarify, the tape that I used on the chip that disintegrated was not capped on. That was just like double-sided office tape, which I usually use when I don't have a hot plate under it, so it was the closest thing I had, and clearly not very well suited to the job. Oh, that's right. This orientation is different than what I was looking at before, and now the top left, or now the pin 1 is top right. Man. Hard to tell, but that seems to be the right orientation. It's kind of sticky on top, which makes it a little hard to place. Okay. All right. Air time. How's our cat cam? Ooh, we can watch that office glue burn. That's pretty gross. Oops. Wow, that's interesting. I just accidentally bumped it with the hot air tool, but it sprung back into position, which might mean that it's actually soldered. I was watching for these nearby passives to start to look like they were melting. Okay. Yeah. This is not especially useful here. It's just maxing out and getting confused. Well, I'm not sure if that was enough heat. Starting to seem like it probably was, but I might let this cool a little bit and then try to see if it feels stuck. A 400 pin QFP would be enormous. What is the biggest one I've seen? I think I've seen like 256 pin QFPs. I don't know. My favorite big chip, speaking of big chips, if anybody's taken apart like a Sega Genesis or any other gear from that era, I really like the enormous, they weren't 40 pin, I think. I think they were like 64 pin dips. Yeah, plastic dip. So they were really long and wide. Really should have been a PLCC package, but I guess there was a brief time period where that made sense. That feels sturdy actually. That might be soldered. So, well, at this point I don't necessarily have a better option or better suggestion than just letting this cool down and testing it. Because that's all I got right now. So the fan on this hot plate continues to run while it cools down, but I turned off the actual heat. So that should let it cool down relatively gently. I'm going to wash up and maybe see if Tuco is interested in playing. I'm inclined to, I'm not sure whether it's best to leave this on the hot plate to cool down really slowly or just to take it off and let it cool down normally. I don't think it necessarily needs to cool down amazingly slow. But I might as well leave it on here at least for a little while. That's still hot. I don't know if the microphone cable reaches to the washing up sink. Alright, I think I'm going to dismount my headset, but let me do you all the favor of muting it first. Hey Tuco, do you want to play Bolt while the board cools a little? Where's the Bolt? a sweet cat. Oh, I see a bolt. Oh, there's a couple over here. He is so diligent. Oh, the fan noise. So that's probably the microphone above the table here is probably picking up the preheating plates fan, which is pretty loud even in person. Tuco. I'm not using the built-in microphones in any of these cameras. Well, I mean, the webcams don't, I mean, I guess they have built-in microphones, but not really mics that I can route into audio equipment. They're just only apparent on the streaming machine. And then the two mics I'm using for the actual audio mix are this shotgun mic above the desk, and then the headset that I just took off. This is a hard one, Tuco. He has not given up yet. Yeah, Hug Martin in chat just asks if I'm going to do a video every day. So I have been doing them the last couple days, and it's been fun. I don't know if that's going to be like a totally regular thing, but I'm trying to do these as often as I can make it convenient to. So, and it's nice, like this long weekend, I can get to do more of a context switch away from work stuff into my own stuff, which, you know, I'm getting better at, but it's still not the smoothest thing necessarily. Oh, Tuco, are you giving up on this bolt, or are you looking way over there? Did I scare you? Wow, he is diligent. So I've got a spare bolt in my hand right here that I might relieve him with. Hey, Tuke. Do you want this one? I think I can turn off the hot plate fan now. Oh, I do have a laser pointer. In fact, the little presentation remote that I've been using to change channels on the stream has a laser pointer in it. Oh, the laser is really faint on the camera, but Tuco can see it. This is kind of funny on the stream, like if you can't see the laser dot at all, but you can kind of watch Tuco following nothing. I wonder if it's more visible if I'm standing over here and pointing it kind of more toward the camera. I do have brighter lasers, but it's nice not to use one super bright with Tuco just to improve eye safety. Do you like this one? Oh, shoot. You're so almost getting it. Of course he likes the bolts more because he can actually catch them. Oh, Duke, it's gone. Oh, I think the other fan noise is I forgot to turn off the air tool. Let's do that. I'll turn off its fan in just a sec. I'm going to throw him something he can catch. Where's the bolt?
such a cat. Where are you? I love his chirps. Well, let's see how touchable this board is. Yeah, this board is cold enough to handle, so let's try powering it on. Alright, I'm going to temporarily move this. It's a little burly, but I'm pretty happy with it so far. Alright, so we got this thing again. Do some minimal reassembly. So some of the, if you weren't on the last stream, some of the kind of pre-tests that I did before this were to kind of find the minimal reassembly that would still give me a working phone, and verified that I do need the display clearly so I can see that it's working, and the connector for the front keyboard also has the power button, so I need that to be able to turn it on. And it also needs the battery attached. And just in a little bit of testing, we didn't find, I didn't find like a really good workaround to power it without the battery, so that's just what I've been doing so far. Is this on focus? That is focusing on the microscope, which is not super helpful. Let's just take the microscope out of the frame. Alright, display. Alright, those two flat flex pushed back on. Battery connector looks like it's in good-ish condition still. That's the chip we just put back on. So, if things are good, I put the battery in, nothing bursts into flames, then I push the power button with a little stick because it's really tiny without the case fully assembled, and then we see it boot. Without this chip assembled last time, we just saw a black, or without it put on properly, we just saw a black screen. Okay, feeling for the button. Alright, pushing the button, holding it down for a few seconds. You should see that logo showing up on the screen now, but it seems to still be dead. Could be a lot of reasons for that. Could have toasted one of the chips, it could still be a bad solder joint. It's tempting at this time to do another like yanking it off post-mortem to see if anything actually stuck, but if it partially stuck, then that'll just like destroy the board the rest of the way. So, oh well, no magical success there. It was a bit of a long shot, but I thought it was at least worth a try. Let's get a final zoomed in shot of the carnage here. It looks assembled for sure, but it's not actually working. Hey, Tuco. You have any parting thoughts for today's
today's stream. Well, thanks for joining again for a quick morning stream with a little bit more soldering, again unsuccessfully, and some cat. And as always, thanks so much to my patrons. And if you have any suggestions, things you liked or didn't like, then let me know on Twitter or in video comments. All right, have a good day, everyone.